The creature that refused to die. The Empire did not believe in mercy. It believed in permanence. In power that did not fade, did not hesitate, did not forgive. Across 1,000 systems, across suns that burned blue, red, and dying white, the Empire spread like an unending shadow, fleets carved through resistance. Worlds fell. Civilizations vanished not with screams but with silence, erased so completely that history itself struggled to remember they had ever existed. To serve the Empire was to understand one simple truth. Only strength had value. Everything else was discarded. At the center of that unyielding doctrine stood the Emperor. Not a man's, not a creature easily understood, but something older than most species dared imagine. Something that had watched civilizations rise and personally ensured they fell. His flagship drifted in the void like a shard of night. The Varith called. A warship so vast it could eclipse cities. Its surface was smooth, black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Energy pulsed faintly beneath its skin, like a heartbeat too slow to belong to anything mortal. Inside, its halls were silent. Not with peace, but with control. And at the very heart of it, the throne chamber waited. It was a place built to remind all who entered of their insignificance. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, vanishing into darkness. The floor was polished obsidian, reflecting distorted silhouettes of those who stood upon it. Massive pillars lined the sides, carved with the remains of conquered species, bone fused with metal, history turned into architecture. Every step echoed. Every breath felt observed. The court had assembled. Commanders in warforged armor stood in rigid lines. Nobles draped in ceremonial plating whispered in low, cautious tones. War priests, tall, thin beings with elongated limbs, stood perfectly still, their faces hidden behind expressionless masks. No one spoke above a whisper. Because the Emperor was present. He sat upon a throne that seemed grown rather than built. A structure of dark material, veined with dim, shifting light. It curved around him like a living thing, responding to his presence, pulsing in quiet harmony with whatever energy sustained his form. He did not move. He did not need to. His presence alone was enough. When he opened his eyes, the chamber stilled completely. Even those who had not been speaking fell silent, as if instinct itself demanded it. Bring it forward. The command was not loud, but it filled the chamber. It pressed against the mind, heavy and absolute. The massive doors at the far end groaned open, and the guards entered. They did not march. They dragged. Chains scraped against the floor. Metal against stone. A harsh, grating sound that cut through the chamber's silence. Between them, something moved. At first, it was difficult to see clearly. A mass, large, heavy, shifting unevenly. Then it came fully into the light, and the chamber reacted. A dragon, not the mythical beasts of ancient human stories. Not creatures of simple fire and instinct. This was something else. Its body was long and lean, built for movement in environments without gravity. Its scales, once vibrant perhaps, were now dulled to a lifeless gray, cracked and fractured as if they had been shattered and poorly forced back together. One wing dragged behind it, nearly torn from the joint. The membrane was shredded, the bone beneath twisted at an unnatural angle. Burn scars marred its body. Deep, precise. Not the chaotic damage of battle, but the deliberate marks of experimentation. Its breathing was shallow. Uneven. Each inhale a struggle. Each exhale a quiet, rattling sound. It should have been dead. And yet, it was. The dragon's body gave out. It collapsed at the center of the chamber with a heavy, echoing impact. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, a faint sound. A breath. The dragon was still alive. A ripple passed through the court. Not loud, but undeniable. Impossible. They said it was beyond recovery. Nothing survives that level of damage. It should have terminated cycles ago. The whispers died instantly when the Emperor leaned forward. His gaze fixed on the creature. There was no pity in that gaze. No compassion. But there was something far more dangerous. Curiosity. Designation. A single word. An advisor stepped forward immediately. Tall, thin. His skin carried a faint metallic sheen, his eyes glowing softly with implanted data streams. Draconis Prime Classification, Your Majesty, he said smoothly. Commonly referred to as void dragons, rare, highly adaptive, known for extreme resilience and advanced cognitive capabilities. The Emperor said nothing. The advisor continued. This specimen was recovered during the suppression of the Calith Rebellion. It served as a primary war asset for the insurgents. Multiple Imperial units were lost attempting to neutralize it. A slight pause. It was eventually captured. Silence lingered. The Emperor's gaze did not shift. And its current condition. The advisor hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Critical, he said. Extensive structural damage, internal systems failing, neural responses inconsistent. Another pause. By all known metrics, it should not be alive. As if responding to those words. The dragon moved. Barely. Its head shifted slightly against the floor. Its claws scraped weakly against the obsidian surface. And then, slowly, its eye opened. Only once. The other was clouded, damaged beyond use. But the one that remained burned. It was dim, flickering, but it was there. And when it focused, it did not look at the guards. It looked at the Emperor. The chamber held its breath. Because what they saw, what they felt, was not fear. It was not submission. It was defiance. Even now, even broken, even dying, the creature refused to bow. A low sound escaped its throat. Not quite a growls, not quite a breath, but something that carried meaning. Something ancient. A refusal. The Emperor smiled. It was a small expression. Subtle and utterly devoid of warmth. Remarkable, he said softly. He rose. The movement sent a visible reaction through the chamber. Every noble, every commander, every attendant lowered themselves instantly, heads bowed. The Emperor descended the steps of his throne. Each step measured. Precise. He stopped a short distance from the dragon. The creature did not look away. Despite everything, it held his gaze. Such persistence, the Emperor said. He tilted his head slightly. Studying. Tell me, he continued, his voice almost thoughtful, what sustains you? The dragon did not respond. But its eye burned. The Emperor's smile deepened. Pain, he suggested. Silence. Instinct. Nothing. Or defiance. The dragon exhaled. A faint plume of heat escaped its nostrils. Not fire. Not anymore. But something that hinted at what once was. The Emperor turned. To continue investing resources into this creature would be inefficient, the advisor said carefully. Its survival is statistically improbable, its usefulness minimal. A murmur of agreement followed. It should be terminated. The Emperor raised a single hand. The chamber fell silent instantly. He did not look at the advisor. His gaze remained on the dragon. No, he said. The words settled like gravity. Not loud. Not forceful. Absolute. He turned slightly. Summon the human. This time, the reaction was immediate. Several members of the court visibly stiffened. Others exchanged brief, uncertain glances. The human, Your Majesty, one noble dared to ask. The Emperor did not look at him. Oh, yes. The noble hesitated. With respect, that individual is unconventional. A pause. Unpredictable. The Emperor's gaze shifted. Slowly, it landed on the speaker. And for a single moment, the noble understood what it meant to stand before something truly powerful. Precisely, the Emperor said. The noble bowed deeply. Of course, Your Majesty. The doors opened once more. And he entered. Commander Elias Varn did not look like someone who belonged in that room. He wore no ceremonial armor. No symbols of rank beyond a small, worn insignia on his chest. His gear was practical, functional, scarred from use. And so was he. A long mark ran across his jaw, another along his neck. His hands bore the faint signs of old injuries, healed but not forgotten. He walked with a steady, unhurried pace. Not slow, not fast, controlled. And when he reached the center, he stopped. He did not kneel. He inclined his head. Your Majesty, the court noticed. Of course they did. Some saw it as disrespect, others as confidence. The Emperor saw neither. He saw something else. Something far more interesting. Commander Varnes, the Emperor said. Ilias raised his gaze. You have served the Empire well. Just doing my job. A simple answer. Honest. You have completed assignments others could not, the Emperor continued. Ilias said nothing. You have survived engagements that should have resulted in your death. Still nothing. And you have done so without hesitation. Ilias met his gaze. Orders are orders. A faint smile. Indeed. The Emperor gestured. Ilias turned and saw the dragon. For a moment, just a moment, something shifted in his expression. Gone almost instantly, but real. He studied the creature, the damage, the state of it, and something in his eyes hardened. What is it? He asked. The Emperor stepped beside him. It is your responsibility. Ilias blinked once. My responsibility. You will take it, the Emperor said, and ensure it survives. The chamber erupted. That is illogical. It will not live. It is too unstable. It will kill him. The Emperor raised his hand again. Silence. It will live, he repeated. His voice dropped slightly. Or you will answer for its death. The words hung in the air. Not a threat. A certainty. Ilias looked back at the dragon. It was watching him. Not with trust. Not with fear. But with awareness. It knew. He didn't know how. But it knew. Ilias exhaled slowly. I've understood. The Emperor watched him carefully. Do you question this order? Ilias shook his head. No. A pause. Then, but I don't understand it. A ripple passed through the court. No one spoke to the Emperor like that. The Emperor's smile returned. You are not required to understand, he said. A slight tilt of his head. Only to succeed. Ilias held his gaze for a moment longer. Then nodded. Then I'll need resources. Granted. A secure location. Provided. No interference. This time, the pause was longer. Then, agreed. The court reacted immediately. Because that was unprecedented. The Emperor did not grant autonomy. Not like this. Not to anyone's. But he had. Ilias didn't react. He simply turned. Bring a stretcher, he said. The guards hesitated. Looked to the Emperor. A slight nod. They moved. As they approached, the dragon tensed. A weak hiss escaped its throat. Its claws scraped against the floor. Trying, and failing, to rise, Ilias stepped forward. Slow, steady. He didn't reach for it. Didn't try to restrain it. He just stood there. Waiting. The dragon's eye locked onto him. Burning. Measuring. Expecting pain. Ilias spoke. Quiet. Low. Not here to hurt you. The dragon's body remained tense. Its breathing shallow. It did not believe him. Of course it didn't. But it didn't strike. When that was enough. For now, the guards carefully lifted the creature. It struggled weakly. Pain flared. A faint broken sound escaped it. Ilya stayed close. Not touching, but present. Easy, he murmured. The dragon's eye flickered to him. And for the briefest moment, the tension eased. Not gone, but less. They carried it out. Elias followed. Behind them, the throne room remained silent. The court watched, and the emperors. The emperor leaned back, his gaze distant, calculating, because this was no longer about a broken creature. This was about something else. Something he had not seen in a very long time. A possibility. And as the doors closed, he smiled, because he knew what would happen next would not be predictable. And that was far more valuable than control. The bond that should not exist. The chamber they gave him was not meant for healing. It was meant for containment. That was obvious the moment the doors sealed behind them. The walls were layered with reinforced alloys, thick enough to withstand heavy weapons fire. Energy conduits ran beneath the surfaces, glowing faintly in slow pulses, ready to activate suppression fields at a moment's notice. Observation panels lined the upper level, darkened now, but not inactive. They were watching. They were always watching. Elias had expected that. What he had not expected was how quiet the room felt. No guards. No restraints beyond the environment itself. No immediate interference. The Emperor had kept his word. For now, the dragon lay where they had placed it, at the center of the chamber, on a reinforced platform that adjusted to its weight and size. It hadn't moved since. Its chest rose, fell, irregular, alive, barely. Ilya stood a few steps away, hands resting loosely at his sides, studying it in silence. He had seen things like this before. Not dragons. Never dragons. But soldiers. Men dragged back from the front lines, bodies broken, minds shattered, kept alive only because someone decided they were still useful. He knew what it meant to hover between life and death. To exist in that narrow space where survival was no longer instinct, but a decision. And this creature, this impossible, stubborn thing, was still deciding. All right, Elias muttered under his breath. He moved slowly, deliberately, circling the platform. No sudden movements. No pressure. The dragon's eye opened. It was immediate. The moment he stepped closer, it knew. Its body tensed. A faint tremor ran through its limbs. A low, warning sound vibrated from deep within its chest. Weak, but real. Elias stopped. Yeah, he said quietly, that's fair. He crouched, lowering himself to the creature's level but keeping a safe distance. I wouldn't trust me either. The dragon didn't respond. It watched. That one eye, scarred, dim but still burning, tracked his every movement. Waiting. For pain. For violence. For what always came next. Elias exhaled slowly. Here are the problems, he said. If I don't help you, you're going to die. No emotions. No threat. Just the truth. The dragon's eye narrowed slightly. It understood something. Maybe not the words, but the tone, the intent. And that alone was unusual. Elias reached for the medkit. The moment his hand moved, the dragon reacted. Its body jolted. A hiss tore from its throat. Its claws scraped weakly against the platform. Trying to move. Trying to fight. And failing. Elias froze. Easy, he said, voice calm, I'm not. The dragon snapped. Not fully. Not with strength. But instinct. Its head lunged forward a few inches. And stopped. Its body collapsed back onto the platform, the effort too much. A sharp pain sound escaped it. And for a moment, the room felt smaller. Elias didn't move closer. Didn't push. He waited. Because this wasn't about control. It was about choice. And right now, the dragon had none. All right, Ilias said quietly, we do this slow. He sat down, not beside it, not close, but within view. And he stayed there. Minutes passed, then more. The dragon watched him the entire time, waiting, but nothing happened. No attack, no pains, no force, just a presence. And eventually, the tension shifted. Not gone, but different. Ilias moved again. Slowly, he opened the medkit with deliberate care, letting the dragon see every motion. No surprises, he said. The dragon's eye followed his hands. Every detail, every movement. It was learning. Ilias activated a scanner. A soft hum filled the air. The dragon tensed, but didn't strike, didn't move. That was new. Ilias leaned slightly forward, keeping the device at a distance. Just looking, he murmured. The scanner passed over the dragon's body, and the readings came alive. Fractures, internal bleeding, energy pathways, if that's what they were, collapsed and unstable. Organs failing, damage layered upon damage. The kind of injuries that didn't just kill. They erased. Ilias stared at the display. You're not supposed to survive this. The dragon's eye flickered, as if the words meant something. Or maybe it was just the tone. Ilias lowered the scanner. But you are. He hesitated, then reached for the injector. And everything changed. The dragon reacted instantly. Its body coiled. Its claws scraped against the platform. A low guttural growl filled the room. Fear, not anger. Not this time. Fear. Ilias stopped. Yeah, he said quietly, I know. He didn't move closer. Didn't force it. Because he knew. If he did, he'd lose whatever fragile ground had been gained. So he waited. And after a long moment, he did something unexpected. He set the injector down, in plain sight, and stepped back. I'm not going to force it, he said. The dragon's eye flicked to the device, then back to him. Confusion, uncertainty. Ilias crossed his arms. But if we don't do this, he added, you won't make it. Silence. The dragon's breathing was uneven. Pain radiated through its body. It could feel it. The damage. The failing systems. It knew. On some instinctual level. It knew. Minutes passed. Then, slowly, the dragon shifted. Its head lowered slightly. Not submission. Not acceptance. But allowance. Ilias didn't move immediately. He gave it time. Let the moment settle. Then, slowly, he stepped forward again. Carefully picked up the injector. All right, he said, we try. The first contact was tense. Ilias reached out and placed his hand against the dragon's side. The scales were rough, damaged, still warm. The dragon flinched, but didn't pull away, didn't strike. Ilias held his position. Easy, he murmured. Then, he activated the injector. The moment the nanites entered, the dragon screamed. Not a roar, not a threat. A scream. Raw, broken, pain that had no restraint. Its body convulsed. Its wings twitched violently. Its claws scraped against the platform, leaving deep grooves. Ilias tightened his grip. Not to restrain, but to steady. I know, he said, voice firm now. I know, stay with me. The dragon thrashed, then faltered. Its strength gave out. The scream faded into ragged breathing. And slowly, the trembling eased. Ilias didn't move. Didn't pull back. He stayed until the worst of it passed. Then, carefully, he withdrew the injector. The wound began to change. Slowly, the torn flesh shifted. Closed slightly, not healed, but stabilized. Elias exhaled. Still here. The dragon's eye remained open, locked on him, and something had changed. The hatred, the immediate expectation of harm. It wasn't as sharp. Still there, but a weaker. Elias gave a small nod. Good. The first treatment took hours. The second took longer. Because the dragon remembered. It knew what was coming. And fear did not fade easily. But something else was changing too. Every time Elias approached, he didn't strike. He didn't hurt it without purpose. And when he did cause pains, it ended. That mattered. More than anything. Days passed. Then more. Elias established a rhythm. Approach. Pause. Wait. Let the dragon decide. Then act. Sometimes it resisted. Sometimes it didn't. But it stopped attacking. That alone was progress. On the 5th day, it didn't flinch when he touched it. On the 7th, it leaned slightly into the contact. Elias noticed. Said nothing, but he noticed. He started talking more. Not to command, not to instruct, just to fill the silence. You know, he said one evening, sitting against the far wall, this isn't the worst assignment I've had. The dragon lay nearby. Watching, always watching. I've had worse. A pause. Not many, he added. No responses. Elias smirked faintly. Yeah, I didn't think so. By the 10th day, the dragon could lift its head. By the 12th, it could sit upright. Briefly, shakily, but it could. Its breathing improved. Its strength returned slowly, painfully. And its eyes were changing. Less distant, less empty, more aware. On the 15th day, it spoke, not in words, not in any language Elias understood, but in sound. A low rumble, different from before. Not warnings, not threat, something else. Elias looked up. Hey, he said quietly. The dragon watched him, and for the first time, there was no hatred in its gaze, only uncertainty, and something fragile, something new. Trust. High above, the Emperor watched. Data streamed across his vision. Biometrics, behavioral shifts, recovery rates. Report, he said. The advisor stepped forward. Recovery has exceeded projections, structural repair progressing, neural stability improving. A pause. It responds to the human. The Emperor's gaze remained fixed. Of course it does, he said softly. Because this was no longer just survival. It was becoming something else. Something far more dangerous than any weapon. A bond, and bonds could not be controlled, only broken, or allowed to grow. The Emperor smiled, because he knew what would happen next would change everything. The fire that chose. War never announced itself. It arrived, sudden, violent, unforgiving. The first tremor rolled through the ship like distant thunder. Subtle, easy to ignore. The second was not. The entire chamber shuddered. Metal groaned. Energy conduits flared along the walls, light pulsing in sharp, erratic bursts. Elias' head snapped up instantly. Years of survival had carved the instinct deep into him. That wasn't a system fluctuation. That was impact. The alarms followed. A piercing, relentless sound that tore through the silence. Warning, external breach DATSATAD. Multiple hostile SIGNATURES. All combat UNITS deploy. Red light flooded the chamber. Elias was already moving. His rifle was in his hands before the second warning finished. He turned, and the dragon was already awake. It stood, not perfectly, not without strain, but it stood. Its wings shifted. One still scarred, still not fully healed, but strong enough now to move. Its chest rose, fell, its eyes burned. No longer dims, no longer faddings. Alive. They're not here for the ship, Ilias said. He didn't need confirmation. They're here for you. The dragon's gaze locked onto him. It understood, not the words, but the meaning. The door exploded inward. The blast hit like a physical force, sending fragments of reinforced alloy tearing across the chamber. Ilias moved instantly. He stepped in front of the dragon. Not behind, not beside, in front. Figures poured through the smoke. Armored, disciplined, not Imperials. Rebels. The target is confirmed, one shouted. Secure the creature. Ilias raised his rifle. No. The first shot dropped the lead soldier instantly. Clean. Precise. The second followed before the others could react. Then everything became chaos. Blaster fire lit the room. Energy bolts slammed into the walls, sending sparks and debris into the air. Ilias moved through it. Not like a soldier in formation. Like something else. Something that had survived too many battles to fight by rules anymore. He didn't waste motion. Every shot had purpose. Every movement calculated. But there were too many. More poured through the breach. Heavy units. Shielded. Prepared. A shot clipped Ilias' shoulder. He didn't slow. Another struck his side. He staggered. Caught himself. Kept moving. Behind him, the dragon watched. It saw everything. The movement. The precision. The refusal to fall. It saw the blood. It saw the way Ilias stood between it and the enemy. And something inside it shifted. Memory. Not clear. Not holes. Fragments. Pain. Chains. Fire. Hands that hurt. Voices that commanded. And then, something different. A voice that didn't demand. A touch that didn't harm. Pain. That ended. Ilias stumbled. A shot hit his leg. He dropped to one knee. The soldiers advanced. Weapons raised. Stand down, one shouted. You cannot win. Ilias lifted his rifle. Blood ran down his arms. Wasn't planning to. He fired, but it wasn't enough. They were too many. Too close. And then, the dragon moved. The sound it made was not a roar. It was something deeper. Something that seemed to vibrate through the very structure of the ship. The air changed. Pressure shifted. The soldiers froze. Instinct. Fear. Something ancient. The dragon stepped forward. Fully. Its wings spread. Not perfectly. Not without strain. But wide enough. Strong enough. Its body trembled. Not from weakness. From power. Its eyes burned. Not with pains. With a purpose. It moved. And the room changed. The first blast came without warning. A surge of energy gathered at the dragon's throat. Not fire. Something far more concentrated. It released. The beam tore through the front line. Armor melted. Shields collapsed. Bodies were thrown backwards like they weighed nothing. Silence. For half a second. Then chaos. Fall back. Heavy unit engaged. The soldiers fired. All at once. Energy bolts slammed into the dragon. Its body recoiled. But it did not fall. It stood. It answered. Again. And again. Each blast stronger. More controlled. More precise. Ilias looked up. Through blood. Through pain. And he saw it. Not a broken creature. Not something barely surviving. But something awakened. Yes, he muttered. There you are. He forced himself up. Pain screamed through his body. He ignored it. Moved. He stepped beside the dragon. Not behind. Not in front. Beside. And for the first time, they fought together. Not as master and weapon, but as equals. Ilias covered its blind spots. Dropped targets before they could flank. Disabled heavy units before they could lock on. The dragon, protected, intercepted incoming fire. Drove back the advance. They moved without speaking. Without planning. And yet, perfectly in sync. The last of the rebels fell. The room fell silent. Smoke drifted through the air. The red emergency lights flickered. Ilias leaned heavily against the wall. His breathing ragged. His body, barely holding. The dragon stood beside him. Chest rising. Falling. Alive. Their eyes met. No fear. No command. Only understanding. Ilias exhaled slowly. Guess that settles it. The dragon lowered its head slightly. Not submission. Recognition. Days later, they stood once more in the throne room. But everything had changed. There were no chains. No guards forcing movement. The dragon walked beside Ilias. Freely, the court watched in silence. Because this was impossible. A creature that could not be broken. A human who could not be controlled. Standing together, the emperor leaned forward. Report. Ilias did not kneel. It lives. The emperor's gaze shifted to the dragon. It met his stare. Unflinching. And the emperor asked. Ilias rested his hand against the dragon's side. It did not pull away. It chose, Ilias said. Silence fell. Heavy. Because that word carried weight. Choice. Something the empire did not allow. Something it did not understand. The emperor smiled. Slowly. Fascinating. Because he saw it. Not a weapon. Not a tool. Something else. Something far more powerful. Loyalty. And loyalty could not be forced. Only earned. The emperor leaned back. Then let the galaxy witness it, he said. A murmur spread through the court. Confusion. Uncertainty. The human and the dragon, the emperor continued. Deploy them. The advisor hesitated. Your Majesty, as what? The emperor's gaze sharpened. Not as weapons, he said. A pause. As proof. And so, they were sent. Not as conquerors. Not as destroyers. But as something new. A human who refused to give up. A dragon that refused to break. Together, across the stars, stories began to spread. Of a warrior who stood against impossible odds. Of a dragon who chose its own path. Of battles where victory did not come from power, but from trust, from loyalty, from something the empire had never valued. Until now, and in the silence of space, as their ship moved between the stars, Ilias rested against the wall. The dragon beside him. Alive. Frey. Not bad, he muttered. The dragon exhaled softly. A faint warmth in the air. And for the first time, neither of them were alone. Because in a universe built on domination, they had found something stronger. Not control, not fear, but choice. And that was something no empire could ever truly command.